How many times have you speculated on the biology of vampires? Why not give the spotlight to the guys in charge of slaying them? Hey everyone! Buffy the Vampire Slayer is a 90s TV show centered on the latest of a long line of vampire slayers. Shocker, I know. And now we're going to take a Spec Evo look at what makes these slayers capable of doing what they do. Please like, hype and subscribe to keep the monsters away. And now, without further ado, let's get started. Natural ecosystems find themselves in a delicate balance between all their parts, and we've seen what happens when a single organism takes hold of the entirety of its surroundings, twisting them to fulfill their own needs, creating monsters that help further their life cycles. Back when humanity was still young, many such predators, fungi-created monsters, would hunt us down, putting our nascent species at terrible risk. That is, until our kind created something to help even out the odds. Archaeological and fossil evidence, for which we can thank our collaborators on the Council of Watchers, longtime researchers of this phenomenon, indicates that the first instance of this took place around 50,000 years ago, during the Upper Paleolithic, when a young girl was made part of a ritual, which involved her being forced to drink a beverage made with the mycelium and spores of a fungi known as Kinigomyces dimectros, known modernly as the Slayer fungus, named so after those infused with it. This organism was chosen because it had been seen to drive away such fungally created predators in the wild, to grow under corpses, and even modify creatures to be able to take these predators down. It seems this girl was among just a few that managed to properly take on the spores, and the only one that survived the ritual. She lost her humanity, and became nothing but a hunter of the monsters that stalked in the night. Once this host passed away after countless battles, the fungi within her let out a cloud of spores, infecting a new host and beginning the cycle anew. Generation after generation, it would become clear that the relationship between the fungus and the Slayer was developing, increasing its effectiveness at hunting its desired prey. At some point down the line, the irreversible effects the fungal infection had on the host's brain and conscious behavior was severely lessened, to the point where modern Slayers present no decrease of their rational thought, or changes to their personality whatsoever. Aside from being a mercy to the host, this allows the Slayer to blend in with the population in a way original hosts could not, thus improving their chances of catching their prey off guard. Furthermore, it seems the symbiosis now retains not only the personality of the current host, but also of previous ones. In a process similar to what is observed with the A1 network in Pandora, the Slayer fungus can copy the brain patterns of its host through a simple reproduction and conservation of the electric activity associated with the functioning of the nervous system. While this is simply an accidental process maintained passively by the fungus, with no immediate benefit to its own, the reproduction of these patterns allowed them to be interpreted by the brains of future hosts, giving them a semblance of the memories and, most importantly, the muscle memory of deceased Slayers. This would, in practice, heavily increase the effectiveness of the symbiosis between the fungus and its host. Given the extensiveness of this relationship, and how low the rates of colonization between this fungus and humans have been across history, it was believed that the process required some extremely specific genetic factors to be present in the host, the symbiosis being unsuccessful if these were not present. As further research would show, potential hosts need to present two particular genetic mutations, one of which affects the shape of certain cell membrane receptors, making them compatible with those of the Slayer fungus cell wall, and one which alters the receptors of the T cells, causing them to be unable to react to the fungi's presence during initial colonization. These mutations are not only rare, but exclusively present in the X chromosome, and since this is a recessive trait, it is required that any potential host presents both alleles. Furthermore, initial colonization is greatly helped by the host presenting a favorable hormonal profile which, according to our tests, is consistent with that presented during late adolescence. Some hypotheses have also been presented to further explain this phenomenon, proposing that these ideal hosts serve the function of luring in their prey, which would often hunt similar, yet uninfected humans. For such reasons, slayers have been an extremely rare phenomenon. While for most of human history the relatively low numbers of humans meant there could be very small predator and apex predator populations based on this food source, this would not remain the case for long. During the Industrial Revolution, humanity experienced a huge increase in science and medical technology advances, and the social structures that ensured the immediate safety of individuals developed as well, causing a huge increase in our species' population. Such a large availability of potential hosts and prey would, of course, allow the populations of infected predators, which modernly we know by names such as demons or vampires, to spike around the world, and this population increase would, in turn, set the stage for an increase in slayer populations. See, increased prey availability has led to the slayer fungus overall presenting a greater degree of fitness and higher reproductive rates, being able to produce more spores than in previous eras, allowing it to infect greater amounts of hosts which can, by the same token, be sustained thanks to the greater availability of prey. This fungal network will intertwine with all cells and tissues in the host's body, providing an infrastructure that not only allows for improved nutrient and resource exchange, but creates a physical body layer with specialized properties. This gives the host a baseline augmentation to their physical abilities and many of their physiological processes, to a degree that may be disorienting or confusing to new hosts. Luckily, the Slayer network's ability to save and reproduce brain patterns from previous hosts allowed them to quickly control this as mere extensions of the regular biology. While adapting to these alterations is an easy feat, they will require proper training and honing, just as any human skill, becoming stronger the longer the Slayer has had them and the more they've trained, while ebbing and diminishing as a result of poor physical, mental, or emotional states. One of the most basic applications of this augmentation is the artificial upkeep, maintenance, and repair of the host's tissues by the fungal network, resulting in an improved healing process of the body, applicable to anything from injuries to regular wear and tear to even some diseases. Through selective redirection of resources and nutrients towards specific areas or tissues, Slayers can even heal from severe injuries in a matter of hours, although this can be very energetically taxing. Constant tissue repair also results in a great enhancement to the host's stamina, aided by the fungal network's metabolic routes improving transport of ATP to further fuel the cells, as well as removing metabolic byproducts, such as chloride, lactic acid, and damaging compounds like reactive oxygen species, to prevent them from accumulating and blocking the proper functioning of the body, and particularly of the muscles, an element vital in hunting and slaying the demon hosts. On this note, we can see a general reinforcement of the host's muscle tissue, with metabolites produced by the fungus inducing a change in myogenesis rates, causing a greater presence of fast-twitch muscle fibers as this process continues. This general improvement results in the host being capable of feats of strength far beyond those of a baseline human, and, combined with the points mentioned earlier, allow the host to chase after their quarry and take it down without issues. This reinforcement of the muscle and bone tissue also forms a sort of biological Kevlar, helping the body resist blunt trauma and even some forms of energy attacks, with the body, of course, being healed as fast as possible after any such strike. Yet, the task of taking down a demon or vampire would be impossible if the Slayer was unable to actually find it, meaning a proper set of measures are needed to allow the host to find its prey. One of the first stages of the Slayer fungus symbiosis will be the growth of the mycelial network across the entire nervous system of the host, directly connecting to the nerves in order to facilitate a quicker response based on the host's thoughts. This neural network will extend hyphae that protrude from the host's skin, too small to be visible, but extremely sensitive to tactile and chemical stimuli. Changes in air pressure and slight sounds will quickly indicate the presence of nearby objects and organisms, with particular airborne molecules produced by competing fungi betraying the presence of demon hosts or vampires, producing an immediate response in the Slayer. priming them for combat through the release of adrenaline. Although limited compared to the sensitivity of the vertebrate eye, these hyphal endings also have a degree of photoreception, being able to detect subtle movements and shapes around the Slayer, enabling them, through their own nervous system, to interpret these and respond to them in a conscious manner. This conscious interpretation is helped by the fungi's ability to learn from previous hosts, meaning the response to innocuous molecules such as pollen and other debris in the air, or those coming from people or animals the host is familiar with, will decrease over time, both in terms of the individual host and in terms of the long lineage of Slayers the fungi has produced. Truly, the ability of the fungus to retain the brain patterns of previous hosts has been one of the greatest assets to the Slayers, both in terms of interfacing with the fungus and of adapting to it. But as of recent times, when the number of hosts increased, another property of it was discovered. It seems the fungal network is continuously broadcasting the brain patterns of its host through radio waves, which can be detected by our equipment but, as far as we are aware, can only be truly interpreted by another fungal network of the same species, located in a different Slayer. While this passive trait is always active, the signals received by the fungus will be much easier to interpret at times when the brain is much less active and receptive to said signals, most usually during sleep. While historically the relationship between Slayers and their prey has been considered to be pretty straightforward, as studies on the matter advanced further, the nature of Slayers as an apex predator in this food web came into question, as, while prey killing their predators in self-defense is not exactly a rarity, the observation of predatory behavior from vampires and demons towards Slayers seems like a different phenomenon altogether. After careful observation, we found the blood of Slayers to be completely free of fungal cells, merely transporting a diversity of metabolites that aid not only the fungal symbiont but its human host as well, as detailed beforehand. These metabolites lack any form of antigens or toxins, and this means they can be equally utilized by other organisms equipped to absorb them, including, of course, the fungus that creates demons and vampires. Hence, despite their initial physical disadvantage, such organisms have a great incentive to consume the blood of their usual predators. The fungal strain that creates vampires seems to have become particularly well adapted to this lifestyle, deriving a good deal of nutrients from this diet, but also presenting enhanced fitness, host well-being, regeneration and sporulation rates after feeding on Slayer-altered blood, making it a high-risk, high-reward strategy. Furthermore, attempts by these organisms to infect Slayers with their own strains have been reported in the past, with varying degrees of success. The demon strain usually infects hosts through a cloud of spores, similar to those produced by the Slayer fungus itself, which is used at a short range in order to allow the greatest amount of spores to reach their target. When this is attempted in Slayers, the defenses set by the fungus are activated immediately, initiating an immune response that neutralizes and destroys the spores, thus preventing infection. This, however, is not the case with vampires, as they infect new hosts directly through the bloodstream, which, being free of fungal presence, allows the new spores to spread before an immune response is initiated. Supposing the vampire can physically overwhelm a Slayer, infection will then be an easy enough process. While this makes the whole system more complex than originally thought and places Slayers at a greater disadvantage than once considered, the modern adaptations of the latter have already resulted in a massive advantage to the fungus and its hosts, making them even more formidable predators than ever. While worries regarding the increase in the number of predators to humanity have been brought up, it's clear our protectors are rising up to the task as well. And that's it for Speculative Biology look into Buffy the Vampire Slayer, a fascinating episode commissioned by Majin Gojira. Thanks for doing so. So with this one, we had a deep back into the world of, essentially, superpowers, but with a fun twist. As in canon, Vampire Slayers are a long line of successors starting in prehistoric times to fight this monster specifically. And as Majin Gojira and I discussed how to bring this one to life, Their idea for using a fungus as its basis sprung up, based on the way they find a new Slayer through a black floating cloud feeling very fungal spore-coated. And from there all the properties of it began falling into place. For instance, the complex interactions between tiers of prey and predators, these being humans, monsters, and slayers, provided a good deal of material for how they respond to one another, with a good bit of population dynamics, something we haven't talked about much in the channel before. And the superpowers themselves, as always, were very fun to rationalize as biologically possible alterations on a human body. So, thank you all for watching. I hope you had fun. And as always, here's some thanks to those of you who wanted to see this episode, or any kind of vampire stuff in the channel again. And also, thank you to our researchers and research associates who support us through Patreon and YouTube memberships. And once again, to Majin Gojira for commissioning it. If you too want to support us and help us make these videos, please consider joining in as well. It's of incredible help, and you get some nice perks too, like seeing all of our creatures and videos ahead of time and helping mold them into shape over on our exclusive Discord server. Or you can also like, subscribe, or write a comment telling me any type of creature you would like me to give the Spec Evo treatment in the show. Any of those really help the channel a lot. Thank you all for watching, and see you next time on the Speculative Wildlife Research Center.